Have you ever thought about what happens when a really revered spiritual teacher gets challenged publicly? Like someone just stands up and says, those special abilities, not real, that wisdom, just guesswork. And the past they teach doesn't even work. Well, that exact situation is what we're diving into today. We're looking at this ancient text, the Mahāsīhanādasuttaṃ, which translates as the Great Lion's Roar Discourse.
Right. And our goal here is to really unpack this fascinating exchange. Why did someone make such a bold challenge? And maybe more importantly, how did the teacher, Gautama, who we know as the Buddha, respond? He basically lays out the full scope of his understanding and, well, power.
Yeah, it's amazing. You get to see what happens when a former follower publicly dismisses everything, and how the Buddha turns what sounds like a huge insult into, well, something else entirely. A powerful affirmation, really.
It definitely offers some surprising insights into what enlightenment actually means.
Okay, so let's set the scene. We're in ancient Thessaly. The Buddha's staying in this quiet grove. Sounds peaceful.
But that piece is about to get, let's say, disturbed. Enter Sunakkhatta. He's a Lichavi son, and he's just left the Buddha's community, the Sangha.
And he's not leaving quietly.
Not at all. He goes right into the public assembly in Vesali and starts making these very direct, very disparaging claims about Samanta Gautama.
What exactly does he say? What are the claims?
Well, he claims the Buddha has no superhuman powers, zero.
Okay.
And no superior, noble knowledge and vision. He basically says the Buddha's teaching is just speculation.
Speculation? Like he just made it up?
Yeah, something investigated and spontaneously concocted. And here's the kicker. He says the teaching does not lead to the complete cessation of suffering for anyone who practices it.
Wow. That's hitting right at the core of everything. Ouch.
It's a massive accusation made publicly. And Sāriputta, who's one of the Buddha's main disciples, he hears about this while he's out collecting alms.
And he reports it back.
Immediately, he goes straight back to the Buddha. And this naturally sets the stage for a really powerful response.
So, the big question, how does the Buddha react? I mean, this is personal, it's public.
Yeah.
Does he get angry, defensive?
His reaction is, well, it's quite something. He first calls Sunakkhatta angry and foolish, which seems fair. But then he says that Sunakkhatta's words, which were obviously meant as insults, as dispraise, are actually a form of praise.
Wait, how can an insult like that be praise? That sounds paradoxical.
It does, doesn't it? But the Buddha explains it. He says, look, the claim that the teaching doesn't lead to the end of suffering, that's just fundamentally false. The teaching does lead there. So by denying this specific central truth, Sunakkhatta is, in a strange way, highlighting its actual power. His denial affirms the very thing he's trying to attack.
Okay, that's a fascinating way to turn it around. So what does he do then? Just leave it at that.
Oh, no. He then systematically lays out his own qualifications. It's like an implicit refutation of every single point Sunakkhatta made. He starts by stating his fundamental nature. Arahant, perfectly self-enlightened.
Right. Arahant meaning fully awakened, liberated.
Exactly. And then he continues. Accomplished in knowledge and conduct, fortunate, knower of the world, unsurpassed, trainer of persons to be tamed, teacher of gods and humans, awakened, exalted.
That list itself is a pretty strong counter to the no special knowledge claim.
Absolutely. But he doesn't stop with titles. He then goes on to describe abilities that sound, well, almost mythical, directly addressing the no superhuman powers charge.
Okay, like what?
Things like being one person and then becoming many, disappearing and reappearing at will.
Wow.
Passing through solid things, walls, matins like moving through air.
Seriously.
Emerging from the earth like it's water, walking on water like it's earth, flying cross-legged through the sky like a bird.
What the heck?
Even, he says, touching and stroking the sun and moon with his hand, and influencing beings all the way up into the highest heavenly realms, the Brahma world.
That's quite a list. It definitely challenges the idea he's just an ordinary thinker.
It paints a picture of complete mastery over the physical and subtle realms, far beyond ordinary limits. It's not just about thinking great thoughts.
And there's more, right? The internal knowledge.
Yes. He mentions divine hearing. Hearing sounds both human and divine, near or far away.
Okay.
And maybe even more profound, this ability to know the minds of other beings.
Knowing what others are thinking or feeling.
Exactly. Knowing if their mind has passion or hate or delusion, or if it's free from those things. Knowing if a mind is small or vast, developed or undeveloped, focused or scattered. It's a deep internal map of consciousness.
Which completely counters the mere speculation idea. This sounds like direct perception.
Precisely. And he then explains why he can speak with such confidence, why he can make this lion's roar. It's because of 10 specific powers he possesses.
10 powers. Okay, let's unpack those. These aren't just for show, you said.
No, they represent deep, fundamental understanding. They're called the Tathāgata powers, the powers of the thus gone one, the Buddha.
So what are some of these powers that give him this unshakable confidence?
Well, first, knowing what's possible and what's impossible, understanding the reality of both.
Knowing the limits and potentials of reality itself.
Exactly. Then, understanding karma, the results of actions. Past, present, future actions. Knowing their causes, their conditions.
Okay, cause and effect on a cosmic scale.
Pretty much. Also, knowing the path that leads to every possible destination, every state of being.
Every destination.
And the power to recall past lives. Not just one or two, countless past lives.
How many?
Hundreds, thousands, hundreds of thousands of eons of lives, with details, names, families, what they ate, their experiences, how long they lived.
That's incredible. Hard to even imagine.
It really is. Then there's the divine eye. This allows him to see beings passing away and being reborn.
See rebirth happening.
Yes, and seeing how it happens according to their karma. Seeing if they're reborn in good states or bad states, beautiful or ugly forms.
Wow.
And finally, maybe the most important one, the direct knowledge of the destruction of all mental defilements, all the taints.
The end of greed, hatred, delusion.
Right. Leading to complete liberation of mind, liberation through wisdom, and knowing he's achieved that right here in this very life.
So these powers aren't just like magic tricks. They're demonstrations of profound insight into how reality works, from karma to consciousness to liberation itself.
That's exactly it. They form the bedrock of his authority. It's not based on belief, but on direct, verifiable knowledge, according to him.
And from these 10 powers, he gets his fearlessness.
Yes, the 4 fearlessnesses or confidences. These explain why nobody can rightly challenge him on certain core points, and they directly counter Sunakkhatta's accusations.
Okay, what are the 4? How do they address the doubts?
First, he's fearless in claiming perfect self-enlightenment. He knows what he knows, and nobody can genuinely fault his understanding.
So confidence in his own realization.
Total confidence. Second, he's fearless about having eradicated all defilements. No one can credibly say, actually, you haven't fully purified your mind. Third, he's fearless in stating that the things he identifies as obstacles are genuinely obstacles. The hindrances he points out do block progress. No one can successfully argue they don't.
Right, so confidence in his analysis of the problem.
Exactly. And fourth, and this is crucial for Sunakkhatta's main claim, he is fearless in declaring that the path he teaches, the Dhamma, absolutely does lead to the complete cessation of suffering for anyone who practices it properly.
That directly answers the charge that the path doesn't work.
Directly and forcefully. He's saying, I know this works, and I'm not afraid to state it unequivocally because my understanding is grounded in these 10 powers.
And this confidence wasn't just theoretical. He talks about facing all sorts of groups, right? Without any fear.
Yes, that's another layer. He mentions engaging with hundreds of different assemblies. Not just monks or followers.
Like who?
Warrior nobles, priests or Brahmins, ordinary householders, other ascetics, but also non-human assemblies.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, assemblies of gods like the 4 great kings, the 33 gods, even the assemblies of Mara, the tempter figure, and Brahma, the highest gods.
And he felt no fear in any of them.
He explicitly states he never felt any fear or apprehension no matter the audience, which speaks volumes about the universality he saw in his teaching. It applied everywhere, to everyone, every being.
It also seems to reinforce his claim to know the world, including these other realms.
Absolutely. And he goes deeper into that knowledge. He describes understanding the different ways beings come into existence.
Oh, right, the types of birth.
He outlines 4 types. First, egg-born, pretty straightforward, birds, reptiles.
Okay.
Second, womb-born, like us humans, mammals.
Got it.
Third is interesting, moisture-born, beings that arise in decay, like microbes or worms in rotting things.
Okay, like spontaneous generation from moisture or decay.
Sort of, yeah. And fourth, spontaneous or apparitional birth. This is how gods, beings in hell, and even some rare human-like figures are said to appear fully formed.
So a really comprehensive view of biology, or maybe ontology, across different realms, not just speculation.
Definitely presented as direct knowledge. And then he connects this to the 5 destinies, the potential realms of rebirth.
Which he says he knows inside out.
Intimately. He knows the realms themselves, the paths leading to them, and what the experience is like in each one, the suffering or the happiness.
And he uses analogies to describe them, right? To make it clear.
Very vivid ones. For hell, he compares it to falling into a pit full of burning coals. Just intense, sharp, bitter pain. Sheer agony.
Oof.
The animal realm is like a cesspit. Again, sharp, bitter pain, but maybe more basic, instinctual, driven by survival and fear.
Right.
The ghost realm, the predes, is like being under a tree with sparse leaves and lots of thorns, in scorching heat. Constant dissatisfaction, craving, hunger, thirst, abundant pain of deprivation.
Always wanting, never satisfied.
Exactly. Then the human realm. This he compares to a pleasant, shady tree, offering abundant pleasure, but also implying, the potential for shade and comfort. A mix, a balance.
A mixed bag, yeah.
And then heaven, the diva realms. Like a beautiful, well-furnished palace, pure, unadulterated pleasure, essentially.
Okay, so covering the spectrum from extreme suffering to extreme pleasure.
But even that isn't the end goal.
Right. There's nibbana.
Yes. And he says he knows nibbana and the path to it, which is, again, the destruction of defilements leading to liberation of mind and wisdom, achieved here and now.
And the analogy for nibbana.
A cool, clear, refreshing pond in a beautiful, peaceful forest grove. A place of ultimate peace, coolness, cessation, pure happiness, beyond the cycles of other realms.
So he lays out this whole cosmic map, known through direct experience, culminating in the ultimate liberation.
Precisely. It's a comprehensive vision.
Now, this next part feels really important. He addresses the idea that just suffering extreme practices might be the way. Because he tried all that, didn't he?
Oh, did he ever? This section is powerful because he uses his own past experience as evidence. He recounts being an extreme ascetic before his enlightenment.
What kind of extremes were we talking about?
Well, he was naked. He wouldn't take food offered directly, licked his hands clean instead of washing. He ate incredibly little.
How little?
Sometimes just one tiny cola berry a day, or 1 grain of rice. Sometimes fasting for 7 days at a time, eating wild roots, cow dung even, only fruit that had fallen naturally.
Wow. That sounds incredibly harsh. What did it do to him physically?
He describes himself becoming basically skeletal. His limbs like dried reeds, his spine visible through his stomach like beads on a string, ribs sticking out like rafters, eyes sunk deep in their sockets, scalp shriveled like a gourd.
Goodness.
He says if he tried to touch his stomach skin, he'd end up grabbing his spine. He'd fall over just trying to relieve himself. His body hair was falling out just from touch.
That's a brutal description of self-mortification.
And it wasn't just diet. He talks about sleeping in charnel grounds among corpses, enduring filth, being disturbed, cows licking him, urinating on him, people poking sticks in his ears.
And he felt no ill will through all that.
He emphasizes that. But he also fled from human contact like a wild animal.
So he pushed asceticism to its absolute limit.
Absolutely. But here's the crucial point he makes. Despite all of that extreme effort, all that suffering, he did not attain any superhuman state. No superior knowledge and vision. No liberation.
Why not?
Because, he says, he hadn't yet found the noble wisdom that truly leads to the end of suffering.
So suffering itself isn't the key. Deprivation isn't the key.
Exactly. Wisdom is the key. Cultivated wisdom. This whole account basically says, look, I tried the path of extreme suffering harder than anyone. It doesn't lead to the ultimate goal. My current teaching, based on wisdom, does.
It's a powerful way to counter anyone thinking his path isn't rigorous enough or that some other extreme method is better. He's saying, been there, done that, it doesn't work for liberation.
Precisely. And he doesn't stop there. He dismisses other ideas about purity, too, like achieving it just through endless rebirth or being born in a certain realm or living in a special place or performing big sacrifices or fire worship.
Things that were common beliefs at the time.
Very common. And he says, effectively, I've done or experienced all of that across my past lives. None of it is sufficient for final liberation. It reinforces that his path is distinct and based on something deeper, direct insight and wisdom, not just external practices or circumstances.
Okay. So he's established his knowledge, his powers, the efficacy of his path, and refuted alternative paths based on his own experience. What's left?
Well, almost as a final point, he addresses the idea that maybe wisdom fades with age. Remember, he's 80 years old when giving discourses like this.
Ah, right. So is he still sharp?
He asserts his wisdom is completely undiminished. Age hasn't lessened his understanding or his ability to teach.
And he uses an analogy for this too, doesn't he? A really striking one.
Yes, a very vivid one. He says, imagine you had 4 disciples. Each one is 100 years old.
Okay.
And they all possess supreme mindfulness, incredible mental agility, determination, and wisdom. Top students.
Right.
And these 4 disciples ask him questions continuously for 100 years about profound topics like the 4 foundations of mindfulness, the core meditation practices.
100 years of nonstop questions.
Only pausing for essential needs like eating or sleeping. He says even after all that, his teaching, his ability to explain, his answers, they would never run out. His reservoir of wisdom is inexhaustible.
Wow. That paints a picture of just boundless understanding, limitless knowledge.
It really does. And he concludes this whole roar by saying basically that it's absolutely correct to say that a being free from delusion has appeared in the world.
For the benefit of everyone.
Yes, for the welfare and happiness of many beings, gods and humans included, out of compassion. And he's clearly referring to himself.
What a powerful declaration. How does it end? How is it received?
Well, the Venerable Nagasamala, who was standing there fanning the Buddha while he gave this discourse, apparently declares that just hearing it made his hair stand on end.
Which is why the Buddha then names the discourse.
The hair-raising discourse. A very fitting end.
It really is. So reflecting on all this, what's the big takeaway for you from this deep dive?
For me, it's seeing how a direct challenge, an attack, wasn't met with simple denial or anger, but with this incredibly comprehensive, systematic unfolding of what enlightenment entails. The powers, the knowledge, the path, the history. It's an unparalleled statement of attainment.
Yeah, it really makes you pause and consider, what does it actually mean for someone to claim that level of understanding? Not just about us humans, but about the whole cosmos, different life forms, karma, states of mind.
It challenges our assumptions about the limits of knowledge and experience.
And it repositions the idea of spiritual authority. It's not just about belief. It's presented as something grounded in, well, profound, verifiable, direct knowing.
Exactly. This great lion's roar forces us to grapple with the depth of spiritual realization, showing it as something far more rigorous and comprehensive than just, speculation.
And maybe it leaves us with a thought to ponder. If wisdom, true wisdom, doesn't necessarily decline with age, if understanding can be that vast and inexhaustible, what does that suggest about our own potential, our own capacity for clarity and insight, maybe on a path we hadn't considered before?